Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cold Reads, episode 19. I can't believe we're close to 20 at this point. I am almost all the way through the month of October. That's really exciting. Anyways, so this week we have my beloved friend Veronica Giguere with us. Welcome again.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And before we get started, Veronica, if you would just want to tell people who you are and what you do.
I am not a cheese sandwich.
I will ask you about that afterwards because I am confused and delighted at the same time.
I am an audiobook narrator and voice artist. I help people tell stories.
Awesome. And so today I have a little bit of a conundrum because chapter 14 of Stonebriar Casefiles is solely a narration chapter. Forgive me, I am also opening some seltzer. But anyway, so I wanted to get some different perspective, especially since a couple of episodes ago I did a solo episode. So Veronica, you said that you were a speed reader.
Yes.
And so I figured that it might be nice to have this one chapter, which is solely from Beatrix's perspective, to have somebody else to read the lines, read the narration, as it were. So to give everybody a recap of what has happened in the story so far. This is going to be a shorter episode than we normally have, and it's just because this chapter is short. Also, it's Sunday. That means that Game of Thrones is happening, and we watch it on HBO Go. So we're going to make this as fast as possible. So Beatrix Stonebriar and all of her friends are trying to find a way to counter a curse that two star-crossed lovers have placed under her home, trying to change the minds of magic beings and humans to get them to get along. Unfortunately, they misinterpreted the scroll that they were building this potion off of, and it is actually a curse for conform through ruin. So Beatrix is being sent to the centaurs to go and retrieve a vial of blood from a willing person to add to the counter curse that they are building. Before she left Troll's Hollow with this mission, she was given a potion called, or given a blessing called the Potion of the Sparrow. And she is now feeling the effects. So, without further ado, Veronica, I will hand it over to you to read chapter 14 of Stonebriar Casefiles.
Okay, here we go. Chapter 14. Soon the shadows that I was passing by took more defined shapes as the sun rose. I could see the mountains to the north, where Turek was heading. I headed east toward the sea. The rising sun was starting to hurt my eyes, so I took cover under the canopy of pines. I noted that there was a rushing sound behind me. There was no scent of a predator that I could pick up, but that did not mean that there wasn't one. I stopped under the leaves of a holly bush, partially to catch my breath, and also to figure out how far I had gotten in the past couple of hours. By my estimate, I had been flying for something like 4 hours. I took out some dried berries that I had packed before we left the fairy gardens, and ate. A side effect of the spell Gablo had cast on me seemed to be a ravenous appetite. That made sense to me, considering how fast I was flying and how much more energy I was going to expend. Sooner than expected, my hands were grasping for another berry, but only stroked the rough leather interior of my pouch.
Great.
I sighed to myself.
I guess I'll need to resupply before I get back to Troll's Hollow.
I packed my pouch away, once again feeling the itch to get moving. If I was right, I had about an hour until I reached the centaur territory, and hopefully my stay there would be brief. Taking to the air, I once again heard the rustling behind me. I stopped and turned to see the leaves falling to rest behind me. I started again, and the leaves kicked up with me. The spell on my speed was so powerful that I was kicking up a wake. Laughing a little to myself, I kept flying, enjoying the power that surged through me. It was like being a youngling again, during my first real flight outside of the fairy gardens. Cool sheets of wind caressed my body and tossed my hair. It was cold, but it felt amazing to just fly. Since being in the human world, I had restricted my flying out of necessity. But out here in the wild, there were no ventilation fans or cross-traffic wind patterns to get caught up in. I didn't have to worry about 18-wheeled behemoths barreling down the road and becoming a little red stain on their massive windshields. As much as I loved my work there, this freedom was something that I hadn't known that I'd missed. I gave a whooping call, unbidden but altogether necessary, to express my joy. It was followed by another cry. Cautiously, I looked above me and saw a golden falcon rushing to catch up with me. It weaved and bobbed between trees, matching me move for move. There was an end to the tree line coming, and I could feel the great bird angling itself toward me. I knew that the end of the tree line came with the cliff of a ravine. It was likely that this bird of prey did too. But I paid attention to my mother's evasion lessons. The edge of the forest floor drew closer, and as I got the edge of the forest floor drew closer. One more time. The edge of the forest floor drew closer, and I got as close to the ground as I dared, with all of the fallen trees, boulders, and other obstacles that I could see from my vantage point. Then, at the drop of the earth, I turned sharply downward. I looked up just in time to see the falcon overshoot me. Then it fell, skewered by an arrow. That shock was quickly followed by the sudden impact of a root into my shoulder. I went from flying to falling end over end, which turned out to be much slower. My shoulder seared with agony as I kept losing altitude, unable to right myself. How far down was the ravine anyway? I wondered how long it would take me to pass out. Anything would have been better than the combined repeated shots of lightning to my right arm and the clenching feeling in my stomach. So that was what motion sickness felt like. With each rotation, I could see something glittering getting closer.
Please be water,
I thought. Apparently, one of the gods heard me, because soon I hit the water, thankfully on my left side. The water was freezing. That worked for and against me. The cold would numb some of the pain in my right arm, but it also made my lungs contract. I remembered the need to breathe was important. Using my good arm, I kicked toward the surface. The current had other ideas. I needed air. My lungs burned. The impact of my fall had stolen all of the air that I would have had out of me. Something like a mesh of vines pressed up against me and stopped me from moving with the current. It also kept me from getting to the surface. A pair of transparent eyes opened before me and seemed to know who I was. My vision was going dark, but I could feel myself moving again. I hoped it was upward.
I can't stop smiling. Hearing somebody else read my words is a type of euphoria that I'm not fully familiar with. So thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
That was really cool. And yeah. So how was that for you?
Well,
The forest floor was a little bit difficult, I heard.
Yeah, it was.
Alliterations are difficult, aren't they?
They are, and the thing is, I'm like with especially if it's the first time I'm reading something, I'm reading ahead, and then my eyes are going to the end of the sentence, And I've got headphones on, and normally I don't narrate with headphones on because I can't hear myself,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that didn't sound right. Or rather, it didn't feel right coming out. I'm like, no, no. Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
But
I
no, it
think
works really well.
that's interesting that you don't have headphones on when you do the recording. When I go into the recording booth, I hit my desk. When I go into the recording booth, I can always hear myself a little bit. And I'm lucky enough to go to an actual studio that my friend has set up. So I can hear myself a little bit, but I can also hear him when he has notes for me or anything like that. He usually doesn't because he's not the director. But so I can hear if I pronounce something a little weirdly. Um, so I think that's interesting. I don't know why. There we go. Now it will switch between our two cameras. It's a learning experience, people. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. There was a thing I was going to ask you about. Oh, so one thing that that I've heard people use, and I've heard you use it in some things that I've picked up, is when you know you've made an error, you usually have a little clicker thingy. You have something.
So what I do is I record. There are two ways I record. I either use Adobe Audition, or depending upon the noise level in my house, I will reach up and grab it. I have an H4 Zoom. And what I found out, ta-da, podcaster's best friend. Love it, shiny. What I found out is that it will automatically insert a mark into the WAV file. And that mark shows up when I import it into Audition. So all I have to do is when I make a mistake, I hit that button. And so it puts the marker in. And they have timestamps. So I make sure I've got the little frame thing with all the timestamps, and I just work backwards to remove them.
I wonder if that would work in Reaper, because if it would, then I probably need to get me an H4, because I've got the H1. Like, I can show you right here.
If I forget how I found it out, but for me it was just hitting the record button.
Yeah.
So because you hit.
This is my H4 or 8. No, this is my H1. This is the very first one that came out.
But if you, I mean, with mine, if you hit the record button, what is it? You have to hit the record button twice to get it to start. But if you keep hitting the record button during the recording, my screen flashes up and says Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. And it's putting those markers into the waveform. And then to stop the recording, I hit the stop button.
Oh, there's a thing on here that says Mark.
Oh, look at that.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But I actually just got a new keyboard and mouse combo to put here in the studio so I can move my laptop on the other side of the wall. So hopefully I can get back to recording directly to the computer.
Right.
But even in that case, I can still hit the M button to mark stuff.
Yeah. So. That's really cool. I'm interested to try this out now. But I will do that at a later time. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. And I feel like it is kind of obligatory to fill my glass and raise a glass to our dearly beloved podcaster of the podcast that would never end. And this is non-alcoholic.
Yeah, I got tea, but
yeah. So to PG Holyfield,
to Mr. Holyfield,
we love you. You are never forgotten, and we will keep podcasting. And part of it will be in your name.
Salute.
For those of you who did not know who PG Holyfield was, you should check out the book Murder at Abaddon Hill, which was the book that he wrote that he was podcasting forever. And it was that the inside joke with all the podcasters was it was the podcast that would never end. I think it took them like 5 years to finish podcasting it or something like that. Granted, I'm getting kind of close. I'm at the 2-year mark. Oops. Yeah.
I like to think I'm carrying on a tradition because I'm on the 9-year mark?
Yeah, but you're consistent mostly.
Mostly.
Mostly. But and then he also did he did a collaboration called The Shawnee with Patrick E. McLean. And then he was also part of he was the founder of Specfic Media, which does a podcast called Beyond the Wall, where they review Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that show once I'm caught up.
That's okay. I sadly do not watch Game of Thrones, so
it's okay. It is an emotional strain on your heartstrings.
I gotta pick and choose. I'll start up something later and then totally fall in love with it.
Stick with superheroes. I hear The Defenders is pretty good.
It's pretty good. I'm watching Vikings now too, so I'm good for historical blood and gore.
Vikings. Okay. Sorry, I'm back. So Veronica, tell people where that they can find you online.
You can find me at www.voicesbyveronica.com, Voices by Veronica on Facebook, V for Voice on Twitter, and you can listen to the Secret World Chronicle podcast novel series at www.secretworldchronicle.com.
Seriously, guys, you should check out Secret World Chronicle. It is superheroes fighting alien Nazis.
Superheroes punching space Nazis.
It's so appropriate right now. I am on the edge of my seat, and if you are caught up, I love Chug.
Chug good.
Chug is good.
Chug good.
And if you want to follow me online, I am on Twitter at Nicole Audio, LNICOLEAUDIO. You can also go to our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group, guys. I'm super excited. As of next week, I'm going to start putting up the September schedules for writers. If you want to submit a short story for September, you can submit a short story and it'll be like a birthday present to me because my birthday is in September. Also, I will have a calendar for voice actors. So if you want to be on the show like Veronica has been and all of my previous guests, you can join that group and message me there, or you can email me at Laura Nicole Audio @gmail.com. That is LauraNicole. I feel like I'm doing the Mickey Mouse song. AUDIO @gmail.com. That is really like the Mickey Mouse song. And if you want to know about Resonant Moon Audiobook Solutions, which hosts this podcast, you can visit us online at resonantmoon.com. We do audiobook editing, review, production. We also do this for podcasts, and I could use the work. So resonantmoon.com would be a great place to visit. Just so you know, this work is covered under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Derivative, No Commercial 4.0 international license, which means that you can share it, you can repost it, you can download it. Please don't edit it. It is perfect the way it is, just like you. And I would appreciate it if you would put the link to this YouTube page on your post. If you like what I'm doing and you want to see more of it, you want to get alerts when I'm going live, go ahead and click the subscribe button. And all of the links that we have mentioned here today, including the links on how to find Veronica, are in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know it's a short episode, but I promise you we will make up for it throughout the week, because we're getting into the weeds now.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to bringing you some eclipse worthy production tomorrow. And enjoy the eclipse if you can see it, and if you can't, just happy Monday. Thanks again, Veronica, and say goodnight, Veronica.
Good night, Veronica.
Good night, everybody.